ونصلي على رسوله الأكرم بالشرف الأتم والنور الأتم والختام المحكم وكمال النبيين والخاتم سيد ولد آدم الذي بشر به عيسى بن مريم ودعا لبعثته إبراهيم عليه السلام حين كان يرفع قواعد بيت الله الحرام. فصلى الله عليه وعلى أتباعه خير الأمم الذين بارك الله بهم كافة الناس العرب منهم والعجم. الحمد لله الذي نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن شر الأمور محدثاتها وإن كل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد يسرنا القرآن للذكر فهل من مدكر. صدق الله العظيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله. اللهم اجعلنا من الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين. ثم أما بعد. As the month of Shawwal comes to a close and we start going into the month of Zil-Qa'dah, our focus turns to the great act of worship, the great act of ibadah of Hajj. And this is actually the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. When it came to Ramadan, he would start preparing 2 months early in the month of Rajab. From Rajab, he would start making dua and making preparation so that by the time he reaches Ramadan, he's ready. He's mentally ready, he's physically ready. In the same way, when it came time for Hajj, which is in the month of Dhul Hijjah, the Prophet ﷺ would start preparing from the month of Shawwal. That's why they're considered to be 3 months of Hajj: Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and Dhul Hijjah. Even though we do Hajj in Dhul Hijjah, from the month of Shawwal, the Prophet ﷺ would start preparing. And this is one of the beautiful aspects of our deen, that a Muslim always remains switched on. There's always something to look forward to, another way that we can earn our forgiveness, another way that we can connect to Allah, another way that we can earn our forgiveness from Allah and earn the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the special rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's always an opportunity. After Ramadan, you start preparing for Hajj. After Hajj, Rabiul Awwal comes. After Rabiul Awwal, there are different holidays and different days that we commemorate and we remember as opportunities for us to become closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His deen. But at the same time, it's important to reflect on what happened, what has transpired in the past. The same way when you're a driver, a good driver is going to focus on the road ahead, but occasionally he will look back. He will look in his rear view mirror, he will look in his side mirror to make sure he's aware of what's going on behind him, of what he has just passed. So in the same way, I want to dedicate this khutbah to once again looking in our rear view mirror as Ramadan fades away, and taking one last look at what the teachings of Ramadan were, what we should have gotten from Ramadan. I don't think I've talked about that before, so I want to spend some time today. And one of the ways that Allah has described Ramadan, the main way Allah has described Ramadan, is the month of Quran. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. The month of Ramadan is the one in which the Quran was revealed. The Quran was sent down to humanity in the month of Ramadan. And one of the purposes of Ramadan was to get closer to this Quran, was to build a relationship with this Quran. That's why the ayah I recited today, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. We have for sure made the Quran easy for remembrance. We have made it easy for you to remember, as a means by which you can remember. فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. So who's going to take on the challenge? Who's going to take this step and become one who is going to remember? The word for remember is the same word we have in Urdu, it's dhikr, right? So it should be muddakir. But Allah is so emphatic, is so passionate about this that He doesn't say muddakir, He says muddakir. He stresses the word. Who's going to take it on? Who's going to be the one who remembers? Who's going to be the one who builds a relationship with this Quran? Who's going to be the one who decides that this Quran is my means of salvation and I'm going to stick to it? I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to make a relationship with it. Who is going to do it? فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ? Which of you is going to be the one? And Allah says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ. He made it very easy. You know, how many of us think that the Quran is so hard, it's so challenging, I don't know what's going on, it's so confusing, this scholar thinks this, that scholar thinks that. How many of us make it hard for ourselves to engage with the Quran? And Allah promises, no, it's easy. So we learned that we shouldn't complicate our deen more than we need to. How many of us during Ramadan was reading Quran just a chore? You know, there's a lot of people, there's fadail for finishing Quran, right? For reading Quran during Ramadan. How many of us just turn the Quran into a checklist? Oh, I need to read one juz today, or I need to read two juz today, or I want to finish 3 Quran, or I want to finish 4 Quran. For how many of us was the Quran just some busy work? Some homework that we had to complete, we knocked it off our list and it's done. That's not a true relationship with the Quran. The Quran was a means for us to be saved. The Quran was a means for us to recognize Allah. The Quran was a means for us, for each and every single one of us, for you and I to have an individual connection with Allah that no one can take away. For how many of us is the Quran that? For how many of us is the Quran a way to talk with Allah? You know, I think it was Ali radiallahu anhu who used to say, when I want to talk to Allah, I pray. When I want Allah to talk to me, I read Quran. For how many of us is that the mentality? That when we open Quran, Allah is talking to me. This is not just words. This is not just something I have to read. This is Allah speaking to me directly. How many of us, how many other situations we have where someone so powerful and so amazing and so loving is speaking to you and I directly? Almost nowhere. And here, what is our mentality for Quran? Oh, it's just something I gotta get through. No, the Quran is a way for us to connect with Allah. The Quran is Allah speaking to us directly. In it, فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ, Allah says. This is your mention. I'm here. This Quran did not come for anyone else. This Quran came for you. How many of us turn Quran into background noise? When we're driving in the car, Quran's on, we're talking to our friend, or we're talking to our family member, and the Quran is just on as background music. If someone really important was in your car and they were talking, everyone would be quiet and paying attention. What's this person saying? And here we've turned the word of Allah into background noise. And it's just playing in the background, and you know, whether you're listening to it or not listening to it, you know, you're going about your conversation and you're disregarding the word of Allah. You turn the Quran on in your home and then you leave. Oh, the walls are listening. What benefit is Quran going to give to the walls? So did the Quran come for the walls? Quran came for you and me. So how many of us during Ramadan did we make that mental shift? You know, it's not just thinking about it. It's really absorbing that mentally. That's what Ramadan comes every single year to remind us. This Quran is a communication. This Quran is a message. This Quran is not just a book. This Quran is a connection. And every Ramadan we're reminded that we have to engage with this Quran, we have to read this Quran, but very few people remind us that we have to connect with this Quran. That this Quran is a means for us to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in Ramadan, if you have that mentality, if you have that mindset, that Quran is a means for me to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then as we leave Ramadan, as we enter Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, Muharram, Safar, all these months, we maintain that connection. The Quran is no longer a chore. The Quran is something we look forward to. Reading the Quran is something we make specific time for. That no, I have to read, man. Allah wants to talk to me. I want to talk to Allah. I want to have that time. It's very easy for us to set time aside for important people in our lives, our family, our friends. You know, for me, I'm in medical school. Exams are coming up. Oh, I need to set time aside to study. I need to spend 10 hours in the library. I need to make sure I study. For how many of us is engaging with the Quran, engaging with the word of Allah a priority? For how many of us? You know, I can speak for myself, it's hard. It's very hard. Sometimes you forget, sometimes you are feeling lazy. You know, first and foremost, this is a reminder to myself before each and every single one of you, right? Al-Mu'min, the hadith says a believer is a mirror for the other believer. You know, I'm saying this to all of you guys, and I'm speaking to myself first. One of my teachers used to say the first person who hears you speak is yourself. So I'm the first person hearing myself speak, so this is a reminder for me as well as all of you. A lot of times some khatibs have this tendency to speak down to their audience. Inshallah, I hope I'm not doing that. This is first and foremost a reminder for myself as well, and secondarily to everyone here, that we need to make sure that we engage with the Quran. We need to make sure that we have that mentality that the Quran is here not as a chore, not as busy work, but a means for us to connect to Allah. A means for us that we can attain salvation, that we can attain closeness to Allah, that we can attain piety. And we have to make sure that we don't complicate this deen for ourselves. And one of the best ways to do that is to learn Arabic. The language of the Quran is very rich and important, and it's really, really important. So I encourage all of you to make time, and myself included again, I encourage all of us to take time to learn the language of the Quran. And if you can't learn Arabic, sometimes some people can't. If you have a lot going on in your day, if we have a lot going on in our lives, make an effort to at least listen to some Quran, listen to some tafsir, listen to some good speeches that are being given by people. The big tragedy of our ummah today is the Quran has just become recitation. And that's important. Every harf gets you 10 rewards. That's hugely important. But unfortunately, that is all the Quran has become for us. All the Quran is just reading, I'm earning reward, earning reward, earning reward. Are we really earning reward if we have the capability to do more? The capability to learn more? The capability to engage more? And we don't do that. Some random person in the middle of nowhere in our countries, Pakistan, Bangladesh, who doesn't have access, yes, all they can do is read, and that's good enough for them. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He stopped this random old woman in the street, and he asked her, "Where is Allah?" Now she doesn't engage that much. She doesn't have access to that. She says Allah is Allah. She points to the sky. And he said, the Prophet ﷺ walked away, and he said, that's good enough for her. Right? So for those people who don't have access, yes, reading is enough. What little they can communicate, what little they can learn is good enough. But for people like you and me who have access, most of us have a decent amount of time. We have the means. We have the intellectual capability. We have all these things. And yet when we don't engage, when Allah tells us engage, learn more, أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, do you not think, do you not remember, do you not ponder? And we don't do that, then we're hurting ourselves. And that's the reminder I wanted to give today. I'll end with the saying of Musa alayhi salam that's quoted in the Quran, where he tells his people, stay tight with the book of Allah. They had Torah, of course, and he encouraged them, hold on to this book. Hold on to this book, and that will be good enough for you. Hold on to this book, absorb its teachings, absorb what you can from it, and inshallah that will be enough for you. And what was their tragedy? They lost their connection with their book. They lost their connection with their book. It made them easy for them to make changes in it. It made it easy for them to interpret things in ways that they weren't meant to be interpreted so they would benefit them. It made it easy for them to losing that connection made it easy for them to lose their way, to the point where they became like al-maghdub alayhim, Allah's anger is on them. And the Sahaba used to say, the history of Bani Israel and the history of us, na'la bin na'la. It's one footstep after another, one footstep after another. We follow in their history. So Allah tells us their history so we can catch ourselves in our history. So how can we avoid, obviously the changing of the Quran is not something that happens. But do we not change our interpretations of the Quran to suit our needs? Do we not call other people out, oh, you did this wrong based on this ayah? But then when we ignore the 10 other ayahs that may be saying that they're doing something right, or the hadith that say they may be doing something right, do we not call them out on something based on something the Quran says, and then when someone wants to call us out, no, there's a difference of opinion, brother? Do we not do that? And again, it's the same disease of before, mutated into something different now. So may Allah give us the tawfiq to connect with the Quran properly, and may He give us the tawfiq to learn the Quran properly, and may He give us the tawfiq to recognize, again I say that mental shift, that the Quran is here for us to engage in. It's not a chore. It's something beautiful and something that should be looked forward to. May Allah give us that mentality. And may Allah make the Quran a means for us to be saved. May Allah continue the nur and the blessings of Ramadan throughout the entire year for us. May Allah give us whatever we learned in Ramadan. May He allow us to continue that and hold on to that throughout the rest of the year until Ramadan, the next Ramadan. And may He give whatever we learned in Ramadan as a launching pad so that we can continue improving throughout these months of Hajj and throughout the months of next year until the next Ramadan. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Azim wa nafa'ni wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-hakim. Aqulu qawli hadha fastaghfirullah li wa lakum wa li sa'iril muslimin fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات وبارك على محمد وعلى أزواجه وعلى آله وأزواجه وذرياته أجمعين خصوصا على الخلفاء الراشدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام والمسلمين في كل مكان. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم، واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه، اللهم أرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم إنا نسألك من خير ما سألك منه نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأنت المستعان وعليك البلاغ ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. أقم الصلاة إن الصلاة كانت على المؤمنين كتابا موقوتا.